Hey everybody, this is A7X Man Ben here with God Mason, and this is episode number 21 of the Pirate CSG Podcast. And how are you tonight?
I am making a lot of noise because there's laundry being done here. Yes, that's my apology. That was his way of letting me make my apology to the listeners. I think it's on the rinse cycle right now, though, so there shouldn't be too much to worry about.
Yeah, alright, well, we got that out of the way. And then, so somebody requested in the podcast survey of news. So sometimes there's not a lot of news on pirates, but I did come up with some stuff for this episode. The first one is that postimages.org, which is like an image hosting site. It's gotten worse because they had some kind of problem. I don't really know the details, but it said some kind of problem with the registry or registrar. So the site is not quite the same. They changed their picture URL links. So instead of .org at the end of their picture links, it's now .cc. So basically my battle reports have been broken that have the pictures from Postimage. So it's kind of like it's not as bad as the photo bucket disaster, but it's similarly obnoxious. Though I did get my campaign game battle reports reposted to the battle reports thread just today and yesterday. So basically you can put your battle report text with the picture links in like a Google Doc or any like Microsoft Word would be fine. And then you can use find and replace, which in Google Docs was CTRL plus H, and find and replace.org and replace it with .cc and then repost it, and the links should be fine. So the site is still working, but they changed the URLs, so the links are broken unless you change them to the .cc. And I've thought about, I know you've mentioned Imgur before. I've used that a little bit, but at this point, I don't really consider any like picture hosting site safe in like long term for battle reports. So
yeah. Well, at the same time, Imgur has been really stable and has never really messed around as anything other than an image host.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my dog started barking.
Yeah, that's all right. I've considered it. I've considered using them, but I think I couldn't like copy all the picture links of like an album at once, which kind of annoyed me because I'd have to like go through them one by one with the copying and pasting. And the way that Photo Bucket kind of failed, it's just kind of depressing because I want my battle reports to be good until like next decade and beyond. So like I don't know, it just even like Imgur, 5 or 6 years from now, who knows what'll happen. So there's other options like personal hosting, which you have to pay for, like making videos instead, and then putting them on YouTube or sharing them with Google Drive or something similar, and then just saving the video file, of course. But so kind of depressing time for battle reports in general with the pictures, but it's not quite as bad as Photo Bucket. So I just wanted to let people know in case they've used Postimages at all, but you can still get your pictures back if you fix the links. And the next one is Vassal Campaign Game 4 is going to start soon. We have 4 players. It's myself, Xerix, Ginger Ninja, who is Xerix's younger brother, and Pirate AJ14. So we've got 4 players, and we're going to each control 3 factions apiece, which are going to be controlled independently. So we're going to have 12 total factions in the campaign game, which is going to be crazy. And that's twice the number we had in Vassal Campaign Game 3, which had 6 total. So just a little announcement about that. We haven't started yet, but we've been planning it a bunch, so we hope to start soon. And the next one is kind of
12 unique factions.
Yeah, exactly.
So like multiple custom factions in there.
Yeah, so the Dutch are one of them. The Dutch as a historical faction, and then El Cazador has a Hyrule faction, which I don't I'm not like crazy about. Some of the fantasy stuff, like Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm totally fine with because thematically it's perfect. But then Zelda is kind of crazy, but we're also allowing with Hyrule, it's going to be like an alliance faction, so we're going to allow any non-WizKids and non-Dutch factions to be part of that faction, like combined. So anything from like Venice or the Ottoman Empire, any customs from like, I don't know, if there's any customs out there people have created from like Russia or Sweden, stuff like that.
Or Kazakhstan.
Yeah, it's all just going to be grouped into like this one big faction. So, which there's not a lot of customs out there that are not, one of the main 10 from WizKids, but Yeah, so it's gonna be it's gonna be crazy. So we're really looking forward to it. So it should be exciting.
Yeah, that'll probably be nuts.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and yeah, I've made the map. We're actually starting. I'll give a little spoiler, a little whet the appetite. I've got almost every UT, unique treasure, is going to be in the game to start. So there's going to
Oh
be like,
no.
yeah, so there's going to be 3 or 4 UTs per Wild Island, and to make it even more unique, pun intended, the factions are going to sail in, kind of like we've done in the Caribbean game. So instead of having a home island to start, we're going to have factions. Their ships are going to sail in from the edge of the map, and then they're going to settle on a home island, which will be the first island they explore, which is going to have UTs on it as well. So it should be pretty fun. And the next one is that Hills Wholesale Gaming is, I noticed they're out of Frozen North packs. So they used to sell lots of Frozen North, but now I only see the limited edition LE tournament packs available. So I guess they don't have the regular FN packs, but still a great place to go for packs. But just in case you're looking for FN, they're out of it right now. So
yeah, I'm wondering if we're starting to get into the scarcity years where
I know I've wondered
or even some of the less valuable sets like Frozen North and not Ocean's Edge because that'll be around forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, if sets like Frozen North are going to start becoming really rare, and yeah, I'm wondering what's ahead.
I know, I've wondered, Crimson Coast, I remember being reasonably common when I joined the forum like 2011 and 12, and I just don't see it that much anymore. When I do see it, it's not very cheap anymore. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I thought that was happening like 2 years ago because I think Hills Wholesale Gaming ran out of I don't know what it was Spanish Main or something else, but then it seems to be pretty stable the last few years, so not running out yet. But yeah, the amount of unopened packs is theoretically decreasing, by the day almost.
Yeah.
Randomly opening stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say the next thing on the news list was Sea of Thieves again.
Oh yeah.
So we're going back to this, sort of the video gaming thing, but rather than talking about a new game this episode, we're going to go back to Sea of Thieves because it released, who knows how long ago, a month or two. And recently, I read an article that described how Sea of Thieves has basically the worst achievement grind of any game released on the Xbox One so far, because people pointed out that there's a new achievement that has been added for collecting and turning in 1,000 crates of bananas. There are players who are over 100 hours in, and they say they've never seen a banana crate. And others say, well, apparently what you have to do is you've got to get this empty crate for some sort of mission, and then you've got to fill it with 50 bananas, and you can only add them 5 at a time. So if you want this little achievement, you're going to have to manually drop bananas into a box 10,000 times and then deliver 1,000 banana crates to a merchant or whatever. And this is all the while somebody's probably trying to kill you or sink you.
Oh my god.
Yep,
So
which is just wonderful.
Yeah, so in other words, it's impossible or totally not worth it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, Sea of Thieves, I sort of thought, since I played the alpha for the first time, I thought, okay, you guys have got the mechanics working. Now where's the game?
Yep.
Because it's one thing to have sort of a demo level where, yeah, okay, you're showing how everything works. You can try every one of the weapons and all the mechanics are there, but it's not really a game.
Yeah.
While the problem with Sea of Thieves is that they seemed to have launched the game with no content and just a set of well-developed mechanics, and it's...
Yeah, that's what I read. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why people really bought into that.
Yeah, it's weird. Kind of like hype and like the aesthetics of it, I guess.
Yeah, people do that a lot with the gaming industry.
Yeah. I haven't played it, and I certainly don't plan to at this point at any time. But But yeah, I just kind of out of curiosity a week or so ago, I looked at a few reviews and they said it was very low on, stuff to do. Like you get bored quickly, and though it looks cool, there's just not much going on in the game. It just gets kind of boring, and it's just kind of lame for how much they hyped it up. It's very repetitive, like the tasks and whatnot that you do. It's repetitive and boring.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that the studio that put it out, Rare, is not nearly what they once were, because I'm pretty sure, were they behind Conker's Bad Fur Day way back in the day? This is like probably a 2-decade-old game now, which I've never played, but I know it's kind of a classic. I'm pretty sure they're behind that and a bunch of good stuff, but in recent years I thought they've just been churning out kind of shovelware almost.
Yeah, that's right. I read something about that too. I wasn't familiar with that term until a week ago when I saw that. So,
yeah. I mean, if I ever see a game made by Rare that has movie branding of any kind, I'm going to stay as far away from it as physically possible. I will leave the continent to avoid walking into a store that sells it.
Yep. Nice.
But anyway, let's talk about some custom ships, should we?
Yeah, that's the end of our news section. So let us know in a post or comment if you like this news idea, and hopefully we'll actually have some each a number of episodes. So for a month in between episodes, I think we'll have some at least. But we don't have 4 like this time. So yeah, we're gonna go to custom ships organized version. And since we've gone over a lot of the posts and a lot of customs from other people, we're kind of finishing up in this thread to a degree. So we're just going to look at a couple of creators from Silvaxry. I'm going to look at HMS Welles. This is an English 3-master. The cannons are 3S, 4L, 3L, 4 cargo, SS movement. It's got the icebreaker keyword, and it says whenever the ship rams an iceberg, you may roll a d6 and move an iceberg of your choice that direction. So this one I vaguely remember a little bit. I don't really see it being all that special compared to other icebreakers. It's a little bit interesting, but I think you'd have to get really lucky timing and placement with the icebergs in order to actually damage an enemy ship. Beyond that, I would say it's pretty much average for an icebreaker, slightly above average cargo for that ship type, but other than that, I'm thinking, 10 points, pretty basic.
Yeah, all it's really got going for it is the cargo. I guess the guns are kind of usable, but they're nothing special, especially considering the competition you've got at the price point this ship would have to be at.
Yeah.
The ability seems, I mean, gimmicky is too generous. It's something it's something you'll probably never find yourself using, even if you go out of the way to litter the board with icebergs.
Yeah, I could see trying to use it, then it would be tough to pull off very effectively. So, yeah, it's all right though.
Yeah. And then before we dig into any of the custom sets that we're kind of going to discuss in short length, should we do the one of mine that you picked out?
Yeah, I'm looking at one of God Mason's customs now. It's a pirate ship called the Zui Quan. It's 14 points. It's got 2 masts, 3 cargo, L move. Cannons are 4L, 4L, and it says junk. This ship eliminates 2 masts with 1 hit. The ship's cannons may double their range, but must roll a 6 to hit. Jade Rebellion crew may use their abilities on this ship. So this is the first time I'm seeing this one. I think it's interesting. I would probably want a World Hater. Then you could go LL range and roll a 5 or 6 to eliminate 2 masts. That being said, I would probably not use it very much due to the speed and cost. Because I'm thinking like the Diamond Strike for the same point cost would be a far better, normal gunship. But I kind of like the idea of like really long range guns that are still damaging. I think the swing text ties in well too. So yeah, I think it's kind of a cool idea, more so than practical, but I'm fine with that. So
yeah, I think the first time I posted it might have been a long ship and not a junk, but you're probably right about the cost. Do you think it could come down? If so, how far?
Maybe the only issue is you've got 4 abilities, and one of them is really good. So it's kind of one of those cases where, like, the abilities kind of outstrip the practicality of it. Like, I've got a custom with like 3 abilities, and like I can't really justify lowering the cost because it would mean that, like, if it had no abilities, it would be like severely undercosted, for example. But I think you still could lower it. I mean, just to make it more practical, like 12 maybe would make it better. But probably no lower than that. So
That's fair.
12, 13, 14 maybe. Yeah.
It's already at 14.
Yeah, with a World Hater, you got 3 Ls, and then you still eliminate 2 masks at regular range. So that's done. Not bad, really. So
yeah.
Were you thinking with the Jade Rebellion crew, maybe Keon Ing would be a good one there? Because then you smash cargo too with the hits.
Yeah, that would be a really good one. Or, well, you don't even need him because it's a pirate ship, and they've got Captain Cheval.
Yeah, they've already got him. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's not what I was going for. I was just sort of going for using one of the minor factions again, at least giving them a cameo, even though it's not particularly useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I think we'll probably should we dip into a couple of yours from your custom set, or should we just go for Xerx's other?
Yeah, let's do mine first, because it'll take less time. Do the short stuff first.
All right. I see basically every single one of yours at the top of the list is really expensive.
Yeah, you can pick any.
Let's do the first 3, why don't we? Cool. I'll start by reading, now this is in Ben's spreadsheet of his custom sets. This is underneath the Pirates of the Epic Seas tab. And we're at the very top of the list here in the Cursed faction. First ship on the list is Black Star, which is a 24-point ship, 5 masts. Those masts are 2S at either end and then 2L all in the middle. It's got 5 cargo, L move, a link to Moon Sorcerer, whatever that is. And then once per turn, roll a d6 on a 5 or 6. All ships with an L of the ship have their base move reduced to S on their next turn. This ability can be used when this ship's linked crew is aboard. Can only be used.
Yeah. Moon Sorcerer is number 34, if you want to. I could talk about him real quick.
Actually, yeah, why don't you?
Yeah, so the Moon Sorcerer is linked to the Black Star. He's 10 points for 2 abilities. He's got the Admiral's Action ability, which I abbreviate AA. So on a 6, you can give any ship an extra action in your fleet. And then he's got the Doctor ability, which is normally 5, but it's a lot like Crew Protect, so I made it 4. So those 2 combined are 10. So, and then if you got the Moon Sorcerer aboard, you can use the Black Star as like signature ability, which thematically is like they can, the Moon Sorcerer can basically like blot out the sun. So it's like a super powerful cursed crew, and one of the main cursed crew in the set. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do like the combination of abilities, and I always like seeing the variety of unique abilities that people can come up with, which is part of the draw of custom sets, really. My problem is that statistically, while it's all good, it doesn't seem like it's worth 34 points combined.
Yeah.
That's a little bit steep.
Yeah.
The ship on its own is, I want to say, worth 19, maybe?
Yeah.
24 seems way too much, even if that ability were active. 24 is too much, and considering that if you don't use the crew, the ability won't be active, and if the ability's not active, you're not going to pay 24 points for this. You're going to get something like Deliverance for cheaper.
Yeah. If you don't use Moon Sorcerer, like in a 40-point game, you'd have to lower the cost to like 16 or 17 probably. But
yeah,
I think the ability, it can be pretty powerful. It does affect friendly ships, so it's best as like in like a pack of enemy ships, and she's able to like fight her way out and like blast her way out. But yeah, it's mostly a thematic link and a better combo to use in bigger games. So.
Yeah.
We could do one more like ship crew combo. That'd be
Okay.
cool. So.
Then let's do Mirage and its linked crew. Mirage is another 5-masted ship, also cursed. This one's a little bit cheaper. It's 23 points instead of being 24. Its guns are 2L, 2L, 3L, 3L, 2S, which is kind of strange. It's got 5 cargo and L move again. It's linked to Conjurer of the Antichrist. And its ability is mass on the ship cannot be eliminated by shots unless the cannon roll is a 5 or 6. The ship may choose her own exit location when leaving a fog bank.
Yeah.
On the contrary, I think this one's a little bit too powerful already.
Yeah, it might be.
What's the linked crew?
Yeah, number 35. It's right beneath Moon Sorcerer. Mirage Conjurer of the Antichrist is 14 points, and he's got 4 abilities stacked up. I think he's the second most expensive cursed crew in the set.
Only the second.
Yeah. So he's
only
got
the second among the cursed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy.
Well, I think it might be second overall. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. So he's got extra action. So on a 5 or 6, you can give an extra action to the ship. Doctor, just like Moon Sorcerer. So any crew that are eliminated are placed face down instead. Secret Hold, so you can't take gold from the ship with the boarding. And then Smoke Bot Specialist, so you can shoot a fog bank out regardless of whether or not you have a target in range. So the idea is like you would use him as a defensive maneuver between the EA, helps keep the ship out of trouble and makes her more dangerous. Doctor keeps the crew safe. I mean, it's like a defensive powerhouse in more ways than one. And then you've got Secret Hold, and then the Smoke Pot Specialist would combine with being able to choose the own exit location. So, and Wolf talked about how the masts on the ship can't be eliminated by shots unless the cannon roll is a 5 or 6. He made the point. It used to say,
it's just unless it was a 6.
No, I think it was 4 through 6. But then he made the point that it's not actually that great because most of the cannon rolls will be that high when they hit. So it was actually, I made the ship a little better by making it a 5 or 6. I didn't want to go to 6 because on a 5-master that just really shouldn't be done. I don't think. It's like using Davy Jones to copy the Lucy's Luck on the Delusion and making her too good, you know. So I didn't want to go that far, but I wanted to make the ship really defensive. And it's like a true ghost ship, like in the flavor text. So she's very elusive, and the Mirage Conjurer is part of that. So it's like a smoke and mirrors type thematic justification. So.
Yeah, my problem is that this is too many really good abilities again. Also, I think one of the hard parts about stacking unique new abilities like this is it's hard to say without playtesting the effect that they have on the game.
Yeah.
And with these, I mean, these are 2 tremendously valuable abilities. And I'd say even if all the gun ranks were 3, maybe even just all 3S, it would be worth the points still, just because of how good the abilities are. I'm not going to say choose one or the other because I know exactly what thematic thing you're going for.
Yeah.
But if you do want to keep this combination of abilities, it would still probably be worthwhile at 4 masts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because then it's not an outright juggernaut like Black Star. It's not a brawler. It's not as offensively powerful, but it's still really tough to knock out because of how good its abilities are.
Yeah. I don't think choosing a fog exit location is like super powerful, but that was kind of just added on because like the Conjurer has control of the ship. He's kind of the one controlling the fog bank in the first place. So I think the defense ability is the main big one there. So, but yeah, the Epic Seas the set I'm really excited about. I made most of it in February, but
oh my lord, there's a 28-point ship that's an uncommon.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, we'll get to that eventually, possibly. Yeah.
Probably. One thing I have noticed about almost all of your custom sets is that because you play a lot of bigger games, you seem to not mind spending 15 points on one crew regularly.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. If you look in,
I would say.
Yeah, sometimes. If you look in Age of Sail, though, there's a ton of historical crew that are, less than 10 usually, or a lot of times less than 6 or 7. So, and with with Age of Sail, that's all historical. So everything is based on what I read about of the crew. So I make it all incredibly thematic. I don't just toss random abilities on. And then with Epic Steeds, it's all like flavor based. So the Mirage is literally a mirage. People don't know if they see her, so they miss the shots. Mirage Conqueror has control over the fog to some extent, so then he can pick, the exit location and create his own fog banks and things like that. So
that reminds me, something we should do in future episodes is talk about how we would rework certain keywords and abilities.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yep.
Yeah, but we're not going to dig into that straight away. Instead, we're going to dig into, what's his name? Xerax, I think?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, people. I've had a couple Angry Orchards, and I'm fuzzier than normal. Xerax's custom set, Fiends of the Blood Islands, which is kind of like Rise of the Fiends and Mysterious Islands, but with a lot of blood.
Nice. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, that's just how I'm connecting it. And it is another one of his custom sets. The last one we strolled through was Return of Davy Jones, which I think we finished up in the last one of these off episodes or two.
Yeah, 19, we finished it up. Yep.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to the next set.
Yep. So I'm going to launch into that by reading the first ship, which has a point cost greater than either of the two that you... Yeah, Santísima Trinidad. This is the Spanish faction we'll be doing today. This is a 26-point ship because apparently nobody plays 40-point games anymore. It has 5 masts. Its guns are 3S, 4S, 4. It's all S range. 3 is on the end, 4 is in the middle. 3 cargo, L move. The ship eliminates 2 masts with 1 hit. The ship's cannons cannot be eliminated. Masts may still be if derelict. She cannot shoot. This is ridiculous. This is HMS Dreadnought, but more broken. Yeah.
It's based on a real ship. The Santísima Trinidad is a Spanish ship of the line. It was built in the 1700s, and then she was actually at the Battle of Trafalgar. And she's famous because the biggest ships in the Age of Sail had 3 gun decks, so they were called 3-deckers. And I've got a lot of 3-deckers in my Age of Sail historical set. But the Santísima Trinidad was unique because the Spanish they connected decks at the bow and stern to make a 4th gun deck. So it was the only 4-decker ever, basically. So
that sounds like a really good sandwich.
Yeah, good point. So most of the biggest warships had 3 gun decks, which would allow between like 90 and 120 guns. The Santísima, I've seen listed at 140 before, 140 cannons. So that's part of the reason for this ship being like it is. And I've got my own version in Age of Sail, which I like better, of course, but this it does do a good job of checking it out. The Spanish gunners weren't nearly as good as their British counterparts, and the cannons themselves weren't as good too, so it makes sense that the ranks aren't fantastic. On this ship itself, though, I don't think it's I don't know. I think it's breakable, but I don't think it's totally broken because the cargo...
I think it's easily breakable, if I'm honest. Roberto Santana and a world hater, you've got yourself 1S on either end, 3S in the middle. You've got a very likely 10 masts worth of damage in a single shoot action, and you can't reduce that by blowing away masts.
Yeah.
There's also the problem that if you were to put a musketeer on this ship, you're adding another to that, and that's
a good idea. Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
give us ideas, right?
and it's easy to add more space to the ship. I know he's trying to keep it from being cheesable by giving it 3 cargo, but the Spanish are well equipped to boost the run cargo space. They have Master Bianco from Savage Shores, who's a cargo master, and then they have the likes of Dominic Freda. So you can easily boost this ship's cargo to 5, increase its or decrease its cannon ranks, and I think it's just a little too crazy. I think it would be fair to make a sort of. Here's my idea. You know how Constitution is sort of a reskin of a Corazado?
Yeah.
Santissima should be a sort of adjusted version of HMS Dreadnought, made more Spanish. I'm not sure how you would do that, but
I think this is almost as close as you can get, because like the idea, I mean, it's kind of supposed to be a crazy ship, because 140 guns versus 100. That's the inspiration behind the abilities. So I think either maybe increasing the cost to 30 or something, or maybe decreasing the speed to S. I don't think the ship was fast that I know of anyway. So I think those are 2 potential edits that could work. And yeah, I think my version of the ship is even better. So
wonderful.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't look at that.
By better, you mean more powerful or more sane?
No, it's less sane. I think it's 28 points.
Wonderful. We'll get to that one day.
But I think it has 7 cargo, so yeah.
So, that's better.
Yeah, much better. But I might, with me, I don't mind just jacking up costs like very liberally. So like I'll just add like 5 or 10 points to a point cost and like call it a day. So, but I realize that doesn't always fix everything. Some stuff is so crazy it doesn't really work. But
this ship cannot be shot at by ships within S of her. This ship cannot be shot by L range guns.
Yeah, that wouldn't do that.
I'll just make it 40 points. It's a 2-masted ship, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I hate the Bonaparte's ability, so I wouldn't bother with that anymore. But
the next one is La Luna Crescente, I think.
Yeah, I'll do that one.
All right.
I actually wrote a review of this ship. So it was maybe the first like miniature review of a custom game piece. So I've certainly seen this one. This one's 14 points. It's a 4-masted galley. The guns are 4L, 4S, 4S, 4L. The cargo is 5. Base move is LS, and then it's got the ability that says when the ship reaches its cargo limit, its base move becomes L and can't be increased. So it's got a negative ability. But as I said in my review, I think it's still a pretty good gold runner. It's got a negative ability. Naturally, some of the early game ships that are kind of bokeh in their own right, like the Hoya del Sol and Santa Isabel, kind of wreck this thing and blow it out of the water in terms of gold running. But I think as is the decent ship, you could put a helmsman, and I would probably try to get some version of Dominic Freda aboard here to increase the cargo, and then that increases the limit. It makes it harder to decrease that speed, because you want to always keep a cargo space open, especially because it can't be increased. That's definitely a big problem there. So I think it has some potential, and I think she would hold up better if WizKids had done a better job with some of the first 3 sets were a little crazy with the gold runners, including for the Spanish. So without that ridiculous competition, I think this ship would stand out as a pretty good, durable gold runner. And even a raider between the speed and galley can't be pinned. So it's a decent ship to steal gold with, too. So.
Yeah, this ship is... if you take out the competition from the earlier sets, which is a little bit crazy, then you're looking at a pretty good ship. But since that isn't the reality, I'm inclined to say this ship, you could probably reduce its cost by a point or 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that happening too,
Yeah. And there's no linked crew, so we don't have to look at that and see that there's a 13-point linked crew or anything. So we'll go to Estrella de Marfil, I think. I'm not good with my Spanish pronunciation. This is a 15.4 master. Guns are 4L, 3S, 3S, 4L, 5 cargo, SS move. This is a galley, and it gets +1 to boarding rolls. It's like it's trying to be a hybrid, but it's hardly any better of a gunship or warship than La Luna above. It's more expensive, it's slower, same cargo, only has slightly better of middle guns, and its ability isn't really that great on a ship this size. Yeah, I think this one could be 13
Yeah,
for 12.
I agree. Yeah, I think 13 makes sense. I see it as an okay hybrid, a little bit more offensive than the Luna between the guns and then
It's highly offensive to me.
Wait, what? Sorry, what?
It's highly offensive to me.
Oh, yeah. But I think between galley and then +1 to boarding rolls, this one is even better at raiding enemy gold runners. And you could also put some kind of cargo booster on here too. But yeah, as a hybrid, it's a little lacking. So yeah, I could see maybe the kind of in the spirit of the galleys and the corsairs in general, maybe that front cannon could become like 2L or something with those bow chasers facing forward of the ship. But other than that,
2L, I'd almost consider it. I'd still say it was steep, but
then it's more usable, I guess, at that cost.
Yeah.
But yeah, as is, it's kind of just a meh hybrid, I guess, to me. But it's interesting enough for me to consider it, but it's a little pricey for what you're getting.
Yeah, 15 points for meh doesn't cut it for me.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
especially a 40-point player like you.
Absolutely.
The next one is La Luz del Sol. 15 points, 3 masts. The guns are 3S, 4S, 3S. It's got 5 cargo, SS move, and then the armed merchant keyword, which I'm just going to scroll up right here. And yeah, it's once per turn as a free action, one of the ship's cannons may shoot at one enemy target within range. The shot may not have its range or rank increased. So it can kind of shoot kind of randomly without a captain. So that's kind of cool. Only one of the cannons, of course, but but I think this ship is yet another hybrid option, really, is what I see. I don't know. And again, the point cost seems a little high. I say this one could be 13 as well.
I think this one, 13, maybe even 12.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you make this 13, then you're putting it in competition with La Décharge. Le Décharge, which is statistically better in multiple ways, even at that price. And I don't think this ability is as good as one would hope it to be.
Yeah.
Because odds are, if you've been chased down by a warship, you're in trouble anyway, and it just sort of seems like fighting to the bitter end to have that ability. I'd say 12 would probably be fair.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I will say I can kind of tell the next ship kind of breaks the trend, but
yes, it does.
I do think that
oh no,
this set is a good example of how overcosting customs, pricing them too high to start, is better than catching flag for having it too low, which was the case with Return of Davy Jones. So he's corrected appropriately. In this case, a few could be cheaper, and then the Santissima, more expensive if anything, but it's kind of a crazy ship, as it should be in the first place. And then I'll let you do the next one, which is going crazy.
Yeah, Profeta de la Fortuna is a 17.4 master, and if you're going to spend that much on a 4-masted ship, you better be getting a lot. And you are, because this ship has 7 cargo, SL move, and the armed merchant ability. Frankly, the guns could all be 6S's, and you would still pay for that, but no, it gets 5S on either end, and then 3S's in the middle, which are usable. Yeah, like I just said, you would still go out of your way to use this, even if they were all 6S's, just because everything is so good.
Yeah.
in the context of it sharing the game with La Jolla del Sol, it's okay, and it's La Jolla was always underpriced, but at the same time, 17 points. I mean, yeah, SL Move with so much cargo is also kind of crazy. I think this is maybe kind of inflating cost to try to keep up with crazy good stats. In my mind, the Spanish are better at being slow, high-capacity gold runners than fast, high-capacity gold runners.
Yeah, I like that thematically.
Yeah, so I want to say cut the base move to SS and then reduce the cost to 14 or 15.
Yeah, either way, I think it's
14 because the armament's sort of worse than Lalu's.
Yeah, I think it's too good either way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of, the cargo and the speed, when you combine those two, I think like 20 points would be required. This is where it gets funky because the Hoya should have been at least 17 realistically, for example.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets a little frustrating, but oh well. It's not much else to say. Kind of tough to price something like that. I'll do the next one though. Animadora is 17 points as well. This one has 1 mass, 3S gun, 3 cargo, SSS move, and it's a cheerleader. It says friendly ships with an S of the ship get +1 to their cannon rolls. So while I can understand putting this at the price WizKids would have done,
we kind of all agree that WizKids chose the wrong cost for this.
Yeah, they messed up badly. So cheerleaders, even in a big game, cheerleaders are middling, and this is obviously unusable. Anything under, I think, like 100 points, even 80 would be tough to justify, really. So I guess empty Gold Runner with an escort, but I think for a cost though, maybe 12 to start, and then hope that's.
I was going to say 12 too.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, 12 is all right, and then you could even throw a flotilla on the back, and that'd be all right. After that is Espíritu de Aventura, which I think was a film starring Jim Carrey or something. That was my attempt at referencing Ace Ventura, but
I haven't seen that, so
nor have I. But oh well.
Somebody else.
Somebody I'm sure has. This is a 14-point ship, and it's 2 masts. Those masts are 3S and 4S. 3 cargo, SL move. Gets +1 to her Blood Island rolls. I don't remember what a Blood Island is.
It's like a mysterious island, but like really extreme, mostly with negative effects. So.
In other words, something people will go out of their way not to use.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Unless you only have Blood Island as the wild. So,
yeah, but even then, there's something called the house rule where when you get to the island, you don't have to roll.
Spare the insanity.
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of Mysterious Islands and its mercenary ships that are all too expensive. This ship, statistically, I want to say is worth no more than 6 points. And the ability is not worth much on its own either. I'd say at most this is a 6 or 7 point ship.
Yeah, no, I agree. The ability, if you're playing with only Blood Islands as the wild islands, I could see 11, or 12, but I don't know. Some of the Blood Islands are really crazy. So, and I think he might be still editing those. But yeah, I agree that 6 would work without the ability. So, and then next one is Cazadora Real. It's 14.2 master. The guns are 3S, 4 cargo, L move, and this ship eliminates 2 masts with 1 hit.
This sounds awfully familiar.
Yeah, just like the Endeavor and Trinidad.
And 2 degrees Quan, but some major differences, but they're at the same red point cost.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like La Furia from Spanish Main, which was 12 points and very similar, actually. I'm going to look that one up, but I would say it's too similar to that ship maybe slightly better because the cargo's higher, but as is, I think it's a little too basic and too similar to what's been done already.
That and far too expensive, because even at 12 points, like you mentioned, this ship would have to compete with basically anything at that point cost that had 4 3S guns instead of 2 3S guns that did double damage.
Yeah.
Because then you'd have the same damage potential, but you would have a more durable ship.
Yeah. Yeah, the Foria is exactly the same, except it's got 3 cargo and it's 12 points. So
yeah, and even that is heavily flawed. I would say if you really wanted to keep it as high as possible, 11 points. But realistically, it's probably worth 11. 10 seems a little low.
Yeah, for the
12
damage,
is too much because there's great competition there.
I would think beyond just the point cost, I think a change would be to just make it more unique than the Foria. So maybe SS speed and I don't know, and like worse guns at 5 cargo, and then make a decision on like hybrid. That would be interesting. A hybrid with this ability, that would be crazy. But yeah, I think it could be differentiated from the Foria more. That would make it more interesting to me. It's a lot like a clone in this case.
Yeah, except more expensive, which makes it in some ways worse.
Yep.
After that is you were saying La Furia del Infierno. I'm not sure if it's Inferno or Infierno, but it says Fierno.
Yeah.
This is 18 points for a 3-masted ship, so better be getting a lot for that. The guns are 2S, 3L, 2S, 4 cargo, SS move. When this ship hits an enemy ship, eliminate 1 cargo from that ship. So this is this is not. Dang, I can't remember it. It's not El Cazador del Pirata. It's
Asesino de la Nave.
Yes, this is Asesino, except like
worse.
7 points more expensive.
Yeah, 6, but it's still worse though. I don't know. Yeah, you can see the inspiration, but I mean
that ship was maybe a little bit overpowered, but this one cannot possibly be worth any more than 13 or 14.
Yeah, only slightly overpowered. Yeah, this one is basically, instead of L speed, you got SS, and then one of the cannons is 3L instead of 2S. But I don't see this. I could see 14 or 13. I mean, it's the same. It's the same issue. I just don't know. I try to differentiate my ships. It doesn't always work with Age of Sail because I have a ton of historical ships. So eventually, some of them look similar, but so it's kind of my caveat. So I'm guilty of it too. But in this case, in a fantasy set where the ship is very similar to something WizKids already made that a lot of people know about, I think it's good to differentiate it more. Like with the Furia versus the Cazador Real above, I think you could change it up more, and not just with the cost, because obviously that went way up when it didn't need to. So I think in this case, worse guns, less cargo, and then like more speed, or I don't know, just something to change it up. And one thing I've played around with is just toying with abilities slightly. So like when the ship hits an enemy ship, eliminate 1 crew from that ship. That way it's not crew elimination on the first hit, but it's also not cargo wrecking. It's like in between. So stuff like that, just to make things a little more unique, is something I like doing. But I think this one needs to come down in cost and/or be changed just to make her
be more interesting somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're into the crew, Spanish crew, Almirante.
Oh my lord, that's a long name.
Yeah, Almirante Adrian de la Cruz, El Guerrero de Dios, is a 6-point captain musketeer crew with hostile cursed. So that's solid. Be good on a gunship. Be good on the previous ship if cheaper. Yeah, I think it's good. I'm glad he didn't do a negative for hostile, especially with the curse. It's not much of a detriment. So it's a solid crew. I don't know why the name has like 2 names, but oh well.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay 6 points because I would rather use Luis Swan and a musketeer and save a point.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I would say cut the cost by a point. I mean, never mind the fact that the Spanish already have, a good option that kind of makes this obsolete. Musketeers were always a little bit too expensive to be worth using most of the time.
Yeah.
So even at 5 points, it would just be... I think it would still see kind of infrequent use at 5 points.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Sometimes I hesitate to decrease costs of really old abilities because it kind of starts to break stuff that's been around for so long. But I do agree that Musketeer should have been too, but
yeah,
we kind of have to deal with it almost, which is too bad. But
yeah, my excuse for justifying the reduction of the price of old abilities is that if it's done selectively, so each faction gets a different cheap crew, like how Spain got the cheap version of a captain, and then England and the Pirates got combined captain helmsman.
Yeah.
Like those became incredibly important crew for each faction, despite being marginally better than their generic counterparts. So I think if you extend those discounts to other factions in small ways, then you start to make them more distinct.
Yeah.
Which is something that I felt WizKids didn't always get right, making sure that each of their factions were interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So yeah, on that basis, I would say 5 points, in part. But at the same time, obviously, it sounds like you and Zarex would find this crew of value at 6 points.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. And part of it, I didn't say this earlier, but with Luis Zuan, I've always loved the Mysterious Islands version of him, which is Captain World Hater. And Zarex and I both play huge games where he would be used way more than the 2-point captain. It's not as much about points. Yeah, like in a 40-point game. So in that case, we wouldn't use that version of Zuan as much anyway. But yeah, it goes back to play styles and point totals, really.
Yeah, that is a good point, because the 2-point version of Luis Swan as a captain is super important to people who are playing Spanish in 40-point games all the time. But in a big game, the Mysterious Islands version is, you're right, probably better most of the time. Yeah, especially because, does he link to all Spanish ships, or?
I don't think so. I think it's La Colera, if I remember correctly. But
yeah.
Which is a bad link because it has broadside attack, but yeah. So I think it's their only Captain World Hater crew, but then they have Del Nero from Barbary Coast as World Hater. But yeah, it's a good crew for them, definitely. And it's also one of my early named crew, because Mysterious Islands was the set I got back into in 2011 when I came back from hiatus. So him and Hermione Gold from that set were really high on my name crew list for a long time. They still kind of are. So
yeah. Next up is Julian Ramirez, which is a 5-point explorer. He gets +1 to Blood Island rolls. I guess what is going on here is Zarex is giving that ability a 4-point cost. Yeah. But that's not worth it to me, because you can have a reroll for 3. This might be worth it. 2 is stretching it. 1 is still kind of a niche option. Mm-hmm. So at 2 points, maybe.
Yeah, it's tough to know without playing games with the Blood Islands. I will say, if this is 4, and we saw the ship up above the Spirito, that one we said could go down to 6, in which case Blood Island rolls would be the 8 points. So in that case, I don't know. In that case, the Aventura is even more overpriced. So that one should definitely come down. But if you ever look at the Blood Islands, some of them are so crazy that it could be worth it to use this sometimes, which is kind of scary. But anyway, and then the next one, final Spanish piece in the set, or at least right now, is Comandante Sebastian Salazar, and he is a fleet admiral for 6 points, just like Commodore Edward Preble, for example, or Beckett. He's got a link to all Spanish ships, just like Preble has to American ships. And this is a crew the Spanish never got, the WizKids didn't give them, so I'm alright with it. I think there's historical crew, and I've already made 2, I believe, for my historical Age of Sail set. There's always, for these mega factions like Spanish, English, French, and Americans, there's always historical figures that deserve this kind of powerful, like far-reaching ability. Like Horatio Nelson, for example. So I'm in favor of something like this, even though it's kind of just shoring up a faction. So, and it's an ability I use a lot because of campaign games. That's great. So.
Yeah, although I must say it sort of seems like a direct knockoff of Preble because of the link to all Spanish ships.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just me kind of being defensive of my favorite faction, but I would rather the Americans kept that as an advantage.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it seems, at least to me, to be one of the few defining features about the Americans as a faction. Because, I mean, I made that post on all the faction-specific abilities, and it's kind of clear to me that the Americans were, for the most part, lacking. And yeah, so I'm not sure if it's a pathos or logos decision here, but I would remove the link to all Spanish ships just because I want to defend my Americans.
Nice. Yeah, and Xerix might have some flavor justification for it too, but yeah, that wraps up the Spanish from Fiends of the Blood Islands. The Cursed Connects, we'll do those in episode 23. And another request from the podcast survey results was to do a review of ships or game pieces, but the reason we might not do that in huge detail is basically because via the set reviews, which are the even-numbered episodes, we are basically going over every single game piece released by WizKids over the course of, I guess, about half a year. So we're basically going over all of them anyway, and then we're doing a ton of custom reviews, obviously. So specific, like in-depth reviews of ships and crew is something we're kind of already doing in a way. We might not go as in-depth as we would otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
hold on, your mic seems to have cut out entirely.
It's just because of the machine or whatever. So.
Okay. Yeah. I think it sounds like the washing machine has started up again. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Double unfortunate, because I need to do my laundry in the next couple of hours, too. Anyway. Yeah, that seems sort of redundant. I'm sure there are some things that we could revisit.
Yeah, we do have a list. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Another option is if people really do want us to do in-depth stuff or re-examine things from set reviews that we've talked about in the past, maybe we've missed details or stuff like that, we can do re-examinations and more complete evaluations of ships at request. So if anybody cares enough about a ship to have us give it another look, then go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, always request anything in the forum or in email, whatever you want to do with it. So the podcast thread and adventure training would be the best, but either way. And then another request we got from the podcast results was game recaps. And I haven't played a lot lately, but Xerix and I did do a Fire and Steel 10th anniversary game because that's kind of a news thing, I guess. The 10th anniversary of Fire and Steel release as a set was April 9th, 2018. So 10 years back, 2008, Fire and Steel came out. So, and we'll share our thoughts on that set when we get to it in the set reviews. But Xerix and I played an anniversary game, which is something I like doing. I kind of like celebrating the history of the game and stuff, and the 10-year anniversary is, a good opportunity to showcase a set. So we just did a basic 40-point game, but what was interesting was we can only use pieces from Fire and Steel, and unique treasures were allowed, but something I've talked about in the forum multiple times is using all 0 coins in a distribution of coins. And so I did that, and then Derek almost did the exact same thing. So he put in 7 zeros and then 1 7 coin. And then basically we got to islands and neither of us found anything because we just found all zeros. So it was pretty funny at first, and I thought it was going to turn into a death match, but he managed to get the 1-7, so he won 7-0 after that. So, and it had a cool end game too. So it was actually a pretty fun game for having almost no, valuable coins in there. So, and it wasn't really how I expected it to go for my first time using all zeros. And part of the reason I wanted to do it is because I think I only have like 3 in real life. I have 1 treasure card, those limited editions that are really hard to get. And then the other location you get them is the Cargo Masters, the American ones from Savage Shores. I think each of those cards have 1 0 on it, in which case that's probably a more economical method of getting the zeros, but I think that's an idea. Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah. But yeah, using a lot of zeros is something I'm interested in, so that was my first experience with it, and yeah, it was quite an interesting game, to be fair.
Yeah. I haven't actually played any games in months now because I've been balancing between work and then school and then my hobbies, but I should be done in a month or so, which should allow me to, over the summer, play a few games again, which will be nice.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than Vessel Campaign Game 4, I don't have much on the horizon, but of course I like playing campaign games, so yeah, that kind of dominates. So it's kind of funny on my plays on Board Game Geek, it's like over 400, but then like if I've thought about like the time commitment, if I replaced a campaign game with like regular games, it would be like many hundreds more, because it's just crazy how long it takes. But yeah, and that pretty much wraps up what we're going to talk about. So we hope you enjoyed the format, doing news at the start. We'd like to do that more in the future, and always request anything for us to talk about. Feel free to request things, and like Mason said, request a specific ship or crew review if you'd like to see that. And beyond that, though, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for the next set review.
Amen.